talk a lot about that first season of TNG, and they do talk about Tasha Yar's death and all that. Excuse me. And they do talk to Maurice Hurley, who worked on the show at the time. Oh, he's a real character. Like, you could see it even in just this documentary. Like, he's a real character. This was a guy who used to write for, like, Miami Vice. He was, like, the showrunner or the writer for Miami Vice. Then he comes on to work on Star Trek, and he's like, I don't understand this science fiction. Like, you know, more shooting. Like, that's all he knew, right?
We need more rolled-up sleeves. No socks.
Yeah. Get those socks out of here. Put those shades on. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, he... So they talk a lot about the decisions that led to how they wrote her out of the series, and the feelings that they had, you know, sort of these mutual dislike that was happening. But it's not a long documentary. I think it's a little under an hour. It's worth watching. It's called Chaos on the Bridge, and it's really well done. It answers a lot of questions about that first season of TNG.
Nice. Yeah, we'll have to check that out. I'll make sure to find out where it is and have a link or a note or something about it so that, so everybody else can check it out. So once Tasha gets this information that she died without purpose, she rushes off to Picard's ready room. She has to transfer to Enterprise C. He's really surprised, and he tries to talk her out of it because he thinks that it's a crazy thing to do. And she's just like, I wasn't supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be dead. You know, and Picard's like, what did she tell you? And, you know, so she tells, you know, like her whole bit with Guinan, and, you know, they need somebody in tactical, and if she'd rather die with purpose than, you know, be wiped out of this existence and having died without purpose before. So, you know, they kind of argue a little bit, and in the end, he relents and he lets her transfer. So we go back to Enterprise C. Richard is captaining about, ordering people around, and Tasha appears, and she's like, yeah, I'll take tactical. And of course he's like, what? You know, she tells him that she transferred, and he welcomes him aboard. Earlier before, he was like, if they survive this and she's on Earth one day and sees some guy in his 50s staring at her, you know, not to worry too much about it because it's him, basically. Anyway, but so now she's there with him, and whether they're going to survive or not kind of thing. And he gives her sort of hungry eyes because he will likely never lay hands on her again. That's what I said. And he tells her to take her station. He gets all professional and is like, get to work. So then we get a supplemental military log. No star date, no combat date, no nothing. There are 3 Klingon ships. They're uncloaked because they're being very audacious. Picard, you know, makes like a speech about how they should make sure no one forgets the name Enterprise. And I said this version of Picard is more awkward with words. Like, that was sort of like a rough but short speech. Like, it was not like the eloquent Shakespearean Renaissance Picard that we know and love. Like, he's like, yeah, everyone, let's do this.
I mean, he almost reminds me of, like, General Patton in this episode. Like, he's almost like that sort of, like, gruff to the point military commander. And because that's really who he's supposed to be in this timeline. You know, as we've mentioned, this is not the Picard that we're used to. So he's definitely much more like a General Patton here. Which is it's interesting to see, although even though that speech is short, it does contain that great line, right? About, you know, let's make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise. And And it's just a great line.
Like, it just felt like it took so long for him to get to that line, and there was only like one or two before it.
It's true.
1701 C USS Enterprise.
That's hilarious.
Can you imagine that scene if, like, every time she's saying the numbers, like, people around her are getting closer and closer to hear it? There are like 6 of them, you know?
Everyone's just left their stations. Yeah.
Turns into like a little football huddle. Everybody's so close.
So the Enterprise D is fighting the birds of prey. They've gotten hit. They're trying to protect the Enterprise C because they want to make sure they get through the rift so they could end this. There's only one bird of prey gets hit. Another
exploding console. Riker. Another
exploding console, and Riker gets hit. There's a point where the Klingons are like, prepare to be boarded and surrender, you know. And this is like the best because it's not like normal Picard. This is like this version of Picard. He's just like, that'll be the day, and he vaults over the panel that's behind him.
Well, we didn't mention that. Yeah, exactly. But one of the changes was that his captain's chair is like up like 4 feet higher.
Oh,
you know, it's he's like looking down at everybody. So.
Man.
True.
But that's a great scene where he's doing all that, and you get like the out of focus fire in the foreground.
Yes.
And that was, again,
he's like
that was supposed to be.
Yeah. I'm gonna get you. You know, there's fire.
But they were saying that they wanted to make that Worf as the bird of prey captain.
Oh.
That would have been the perfect moment. Like, they don't know who he is. This crew doesn't know who he is, but we know who he is. Like, that would have been cool. Mm-hmm. Like, attention, Federation vessel. This is Worf, captain of the bird of prey, whatever. Like, that would have been to the audience like,
I think they said the other thing was that one of the things was his parents maybe died on Narendra 3, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I see. Okay.
That type of thing. So he's hates Federation a lot.
Gotcha.
So, but and I think the other thing one of the original earlier scripts is, I think, like almost everyone except Picard like visibly died on the bridge, but they thought that's too much. Everyone, that's kind of overkill.
Gotcha.
What is this, Rogue One? Spoilers. I always have to bring Star Wars into this. I mean, that's kind of what they're in the stars. They're in space. There's a war. I mean, that's almost what we're watching.
True.
Except for her. I was going to say our stand-in Wookiee is not here because it's like war.
Oh.
But then that's terrible, and I feel terrible for saying it because I love war. But also, Chewbacca is great, so...
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, they're both great, and not necessarily get a whole lot of things to do. I just feel like I took it too far. So, after Picard starts doing all this stuff, like shooting at the Klingons, saying that they're not going to get him, fires flashing up in his face, we see the Enterprise C go through the rift. Then we see Picard's face again. It's much lighter, and he asks for a report, and he turns around, and there's Worf! We're back to our original timeline!
We did it, everybody!
Exciting. So, he said that the anomaly they saw appeared to be a ship, but then it disappeared, so they're just like, meh. And then Guinan calls up to the bridge, and she's like, is everything alright? And Picard, is confused, but is just like, yeah... So then we see her in 10 Forward, where she's been making her queries, and Geordi's at a table. She sits down with him, and she's like, so, tell me about Tasha Yar. And he's just like, okay. And I noticed that he's wearing the alternate timeline uniform with the black on the cuffs of the sleeves.
Yep, he sure is. Someone didn't catch that.
And I wrote in my notes, if anyone needs a continuity supervisor when this pandemic is over, you can just email picardcast.com at gmail.com because I'll help out.
I tell you, I love that end scene. The way the music is, and it just gets me. I just like it because it's like, she wants now, knowing what she knows happened. Now she wants to know, learn about Tasha Yar from Geordi. So I think that's just a perfect bookend to this episode.
Except for he's wearing the wrong uniform. No.
Yes.
Yeah. But it was, I do enjoy how it ends. It is very bookended. I do like that Guinan remembers that there was something that wasn't right. I do like that she wants to know about Tasha, and I think this was a great way to really give that character a proper goodbye.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was unhappy on the show, and when you watch that documentary about Chaos on the Bridge, Maurice Hurley, who worked on the show, his attitude was like, oh, well, if she thinks she could do better, let her go somewhere else and get another job. That was really how he felt.
Yeah.
And even now, Denise Crosby, if she's asked about it, I don't think she holds malice toward the franchise in general.
No.
But there are people that she worked with that are like, yeah, those people were jerks to me because she left the show.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Doctor Who, that's how Christopher Eccleston was. Anyway.
So yeah, it's a real shame how they got rid of her character originally, and then they didn't give her more to do. I mean, she's supposed to be the chief of security, and all she says is hailing frequencies open.
Yeah.
I mean, how much can you do with that character? I mean, it's shocking that Marina Sirtis stuck around so long as Troy when, Captain, I Sense Something. That was 85% of her lines, So it's yeah, they could have done better by her, but I feel like this storyline, at least for the character-wise, definitely tries to rectify that.
And again, you got to remember, wrote this in 3 days.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's just unbelievable if you think about it. I mean, that's just, you talk about doing something under pressure and becoming one of the best episodes they made. Ugh.
They had the story, I guess, but still, yeah, all of those people got together and worked it out, and over a holiday.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Well, like I said, if you in that making of book that he wrote, if you read the final outline for it, there were so many things that when they did teleplay that they filled in, all with the relationship with her and Castillo, and just all the other things that kind of little pieces that made this episode what it is. But like I said, they've had the basic framework, but there's so many pieces in here that make this episode. There's just something complete and solid from beginning to end.
Definitely. All right. So, do you have any more trivia or anything about this episode, or any more gushing about this episode that you'd like to give?
No, I mean, I'm trivia. I think I'm trivia'd out.
Yikes.
I think I'm.
Oh my God!
I know.
I can't believe it.
I know. Oh, they did page Dr. Solar over. That's one of her assistants in the regular Next Generation episode.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Dr. Solar report to the null G ward stat is what they said. And I think that was when either when Picard was coming to see Garrett or when Castillo and Yar were coming to see Garrett. So
yeah, that was another character. How come we never got more Dr. Solar? That was another character. I liked her. We got her very briefly, in the beginning of the show, and then never saw her again.
Oh, there was another one. I remember they paged Ensign. It was in honor of Majel Barrett.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think they paged Ensign Barrett. So